one of the things we discussed last night, and as we do b'darkenu b'kodesh, and our way of teaching Torah and kedusha, is that it's extremely important for a person to pick the right rabbi. And many times people cannot really tell the difference between the right rabbi and the wrong rabbi. And every single time we have exposed one of these wicked people that that has a job of a rabbi, but is obviously the furthest thing from being a rabbi. There's always at least a few people that say, "Oh, that's my rabbi. I can't believe you talked bad about him," and so on and so forth. And the truth is that we don't do this for our health. We don't do this for amusement. We tell people about warning people about these different rabbis because obviously these people are causing damage to Am Yisrael. The guy Riskin that we mentioned last night and a few times in the past, he's not only the same guy that has students like Ephraim Goldberg and another guy from New York who bring Christian speakers, missionaries to their synagogues. But aside from that, he himself has caused more damage than probably any of his students by going against the Rabbanut in many different ways. One of them is when it comes to the issue of the get, which we discussed last night, where he's telling people that you can simply divorce your husband, and if he doesn't want to give you a get, you can just ask the rabbi to declare you as divorced, and therefore you are divorced, which is 100% heresy and against the Torah, against the halacha. And we in last night's video that we posted today, we included the clips of him saying these nonsensical things. Other nonsense that he mentioned is that when he sees the Mashiach, as if he's going to see the Mashiach and not be destroyed instantly, but nonetheless, when he sees the Mashiach, he's going to ask him, is this the first time or the second time that that you're here? Meaning referencing to the Christian false god, Yoshke. And if that wasn't enough, this Riskin is also going against the Rabbanut in Eretz Yisrael, with the image of an Orthodox rabbi, but he's going against the Rabbanut. How? By saying that it's time to unite with the Reform and to allow public transportation on Shabbat. So when somebody does things like this, and I bring this information to my Rav and to other great Talmidei Chachamim, and to ask them, what do you think we should do about this? What do you say about this? Each and every single time they say, well, these are Reformed people, don't bother with them. I said, no, he's Orthodox. I said, what do you mean Orthodox? There's nothing Orthodox about this guy. You sure he's Orthodox? And every time the same thing. Same thing. Are you sure he's Orthodox? Because they don't look at the image. They simply hear the words. This is a Reformed person. So it's very important to warn people. But warning, when you give out warning message to people that are either too connected to the world of lies, many times it makes people cringe. It makes people concerned. Wait a minute, are you saying Lashon Hara? Are you saying, how could you speak bad about people? Why don't you say good things? Like one nice person sent me a message yesterday or today asking me if I could make a lecture about all the nice things that the Zionists have done. Because Eretz Yisrael is a place where there's a lot of Torah. So isn't that thanks to the Zionists? No, it's not thanks to the Zionists whatsoever. It's thanks to the righteous Jews that sacrificed their life for the sake of the Torah. If it was up to the Zionists, they would destroy the Torah and it would be a completely Christian state. But nonetheless, many people would like to believe that their heroes, whether it be the Zionists or some heretical rabbi or some superstar or celebrity, are good people because, as Shlomo HaMelech teaches us, ish lefi ma'alalo. Each person is judged based on who he praises. So if you praise someone that is been exposed and shown as a wicked person, it says a lot about you. Now, what is it to say that if somebody looked like he was good, but in reality he was bad? It's there's always a little bit of footsteps. It's never really so surprising when you see a lot of these things if you really get to pay attention. But the point being is that each person has to know The Torah is not a rule book full of political correctness or really even a concern about your opinion of what the law is. There is really no concern whatsoever about what your opinion of the law is or my opinion of the law is, but rather there is the law, and the law is the law. And when people don't understand that, they have a hard time with the law and they try to reason with it. And that's where you get people like Dennis Prager or his wicked students like Asher Meza and the rationalists like Slifkin and all of these other wicked people, where they come in with their own version of Torah due to their wicked and distorted common sense. But yet when they speak and when they deliver their messages in different formats, it seems genuine. It seems something that is they really mean well. But a person needs to understand that looks can be deceiving, first and foremost, and second of all, it doesn't really make a difference how it looks. It doesn't really make a difference how it looks, because you have to understand that we know who knows. We know who knows, and we rely on them. Who's that? We know that the sages know. Now, who do you think knows more? Goldberg or Weinberger or Manis Friedman or Droka Suto or any of the other, Prager or any of those people, or all of them put together, or the sages of the Gemara? Who knows more? Who knows more? All of those wicked people that we've exposed over the years, or Shulchan Aruch? Who do you think knows more? Who do you think knows more about what Hashem wants, is what I'm saying. Who do you think knows more about what Hashem is expecting of us, is commanding us? Those wicked people, or the Gdolei Ador, such as Rav Ovadia? Who do you think knows more? Many people like to say, yeah, but times have changed, and you can't really apply these things to this generation and so on. Well, anyone that says that is 100% a heretic, because that's a heretical statement in the 13 principles of faith, one of which is that the Torah will not change. Now, to make sure that people understand what is the stance of the Torah when it comes to heresy, when it comes to heretics, I brought you a few new sources that I would like for everyone to understand the magnitude of the opinion here. It's not the magnitude of the halacha here, the magnitude of the Torah's opinion, not my opinion, the Torah's opinion, when it comes to dealing with heretics or even people that have abandoned the Torah. They married goyim, they're desecrating Shabbat openly, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, everyone would like to believe that the whole world of Jewish people that are not keeping Shabbat are all captured babies, or as it's called in the Torah terms, Tinok Shenishba, and everyone would like to believe that and rely on it, but the reality is everyone knows that's simply not true. Anyone with eyes and a little bit of common sense knows it's simply not true. You may find an occasional Tinok Shenishba here and there, and I myself have even met a few, but the overwhelming majority of Jews today are simply not Tinok Shenishba by anybody's definition. Nonetheless, the reality is that the halacha deals with everyone from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu until today. Of course, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote the Torah, he took all of the people of this generation into consideration. When the Tanaim and the Amoraim of the Gemara put together the Gemara, they took into consideration everything that they know about the Torah in accordance to all generations, no matter where we will be. And don't think for a second that this is the first generation of weakness. We've had weakness throughout all of the generations. We had Am Yisrael, turn into complete idolaters. We had Am Yisrael turn into completely wicked people at certain times, desecrating Shabbat, intermarrying, pretty much all the things that you see today. It's nothing new. It's happened throughout all of history. Needless to say, the wicked goyim that were and are idolaters throughout all of the generations. But nonetheless, when you look at the world today and you understand what has happened throughout history, you see that people have not changed. People have not changed. That's number one. Number two, neither has the Torah. neither has the Torah. So who is the winner here? Those that stick to the unchanging Torah. Those that stick to the unchanging Torah, they're the ones that are winners. If the world was continued its modernizing and heretical behavior at any point throughout history, we would not have a world. We would not have Jewish people in the world. If the generation of the Tower of Babel was allowed to continue, or the generation of Noach was allowed to continue, or the generation of Sodom and Gomorrah was allowed to continue, or the generation of the first or second Bet HaMikdash was allowed to continue, making all of their sins, we would have a completely secular world, which means that Hashem would have had to destroy the world altogether. So it is not due to the Zionist or secular mentality or idolaters' merits that the world exists, but rather the world stands on the merits of those few righteous Jews that stick to the unchanging Torah. And that unchanging Torah is not sentimental to people that are not careful with the Torah itself. It's not it's not caring about the people that don't care about it. It's not something that takes into consideration your feelings and your pressures from society. The Torah is the Torah. Those that comply with it and follow it will win both in this world and the next. This is the law as clear as day. But to give you a really even more clear message, I brought you a couple halachot so you understand, because this is an issue that we all deal with. Every one of us knows or has a family member or friend or someone even that we care about, or at the very least has heard about, that is completely off the derech, doesn't keep Shabbat, or is intermarried, or both obviously, someone that's not celebrating the Torah in any way, shape, or form, but rather is someone that's living as if the Torah is not an important document at all. It's not something that God gave. And even if it is, it's not necessarily something that applies to them. In so many words, someone secular. What does the Torah say? What does the halacha say, I should say, about such a person once if they die? If they die, what happens if they die? Should we mourn them? Should we? Are we able to? I mean, technically, the Jewish mourning is part of the religion itself. It's not part of the civil law. There's no mourning obligation by your local government. Your local government doesn't obligate you to cry for 3 days and to bury the body a certain way and to say Kaddish. Doesn't matter where you live, whether you live in Israel or you live in America or the UK or Australia or Istanbul or Indonesia. Don't make a difference. The civil law does not obligate you to mourn anyone that died, even if that person that died is the most important person in your life. In fact, it cares less whether you mourn them or not, and when you do, they find you strange. Needless to say, the Torah cares about mourning very much. And in fact, when the Gemara says that if you do not mourn the death of a kosher Jew, it could bring a very serious curse on the person, very serious punishment on the person that doesn't mourn a kosher Jew. Needless to say, if a Talmid Chacham dies, and you're aware of it and you don't mourn that Talmid Chacham, it's a very, very serious disaster that you could bring to your life. There's so much so that Chachamim say this is one of the reasons why Hashem brings a major destruction to the world, because when tzaddikim die, not enough people warn them. So the point being is, because when a tzaddik dies, when someone that's righteous dies, that's really not bad for the tzaddik. They're going to heaven. It's bad for the world because there's less holiness in the world. So if the world doesn't understand it, the Jewish world doesn't understand that a righteous person that dies is a major loss, then Hashem has to give the rebuke in a different way. But the point being is, what happens if your brother, sister, father, mother, whoever it is desecrate Shabbat, intermarried, completely careless of the Torah? He's like a Dennis Prager or a Asher Meza heretic or any of these other people that we've mentioned. And I keep mentioning their names over and over again every shiur to keep giving you the same warnings over and over in case you haven't watched the previous shiurim. or you thought that for some reason we changed our mind. So the point being is, what does the Torah, what does the halacha think of such people? So this question was asked of Rav Ovadia. Rav Ovadia answers to a people that asked him about their brother, a brother that died, but this brother was married to a non-Jew. Should they mourn him? Should they mourn him? In a Sefer Ma'ayan Omer, Rav Ovadia writes, Chas v'shalom, baruch amakom she'harago. Rav Ovadia says, mourning someone that's intermarried, Chas v'shalom, God forbid, blessed is the omnipresent that killed him. That's what Rav Ovadia wrote about someone that died and his family asking if they should mourn him or not. Now, the Sefer Tzitz Eliezer finds a leniency that if you see that they are mourning someone that's not a observant Jew, you don't rebuke them. You let them mourn them even though it's really not appropriate. But nonetheless, real halacha, no, you don't mourn them. Now, maybe you think this is a chidush from Rav Ovadia. Maybe people think this is a chidush from Rav Ovadia, but it's actually not. It's not a chidush at all. In fact, it's paskin la'alacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, Ilchot Avelut, the laws of the dealing with people that have died, Siman 345, Seif 5, says the following, כל הפורשים מדרכי ציבור, והם האנשים שפרקו עול המצוות מעל צווארם, all of those people that have left the way, have gone off the derech, have left the community, that have abandoned the mitzvot, and are not considered as part of the community of Am Yisrael in their actions, meaning they're not fulfilling mitzvot, they don't keep Shabbat, they're not married to Jewish people, they don't keep the Pesach and all the holidays and so on and so forth, or do not honor the Moadot, they don't honor the holidays, meaning honor by observing them, not by saying, oh yeah, I honor Yom Kippur while he's eating on a fast day. And does not honor the Bet Knesset or the Bet Midrash, doesn't go to shul, doesn't go to learn Torah. Alei arehem kivnei chorim la'atzman, kishar ha'umot. They're considered as if they are part of the Gentile nations and not part of us. V'ken ha'mumarim v'hamuslim. And just like those that are outright heretics, and those that are people that go to the government, to the police, to the IRS, to all types of government bodies to go and report on Jewish people to hurt them. So these people that are, in so many words, secular, don't keep anything, intermarry perhaps, violated Shabbat openly, regularly, they're no different than the heretics or even people that report on Am Yisrael to the government to hurt us. They're considered in the same class, the Shulchan Aruch says. Kol elu, all of these people, he says, en onenim ve'en mitavlim aleim. We do not mourn them in any way, shape, or form. Ela, but rather, achem v'shar kroveim, their brothers and the rest of their relatives, lofshim levanim u'mitatfim levanim, ve'ochlim ve'shotim ve'smechim. But rather, when these people die, their brothers and their relatives should wear white and cover and like a celebration and eat and drink and be happy. Now this, I know, hurts some people's emotions, hearts. Maybe you've actually already shut off this lecture at this point where you're not going to listen to the rest. You're angry. You're going to go to your rabbi and tell on me. Whatever it is that people are going to do. But this is halacha. Meaning, nothing anybody can do about it. That's what the halacha is. That's what the halacha is. So, like I said, there are poskim that say that if they do mourn, you don't rebuke them, you let them mourn. But nonetheless, there's no obligation to mourn them, and in fact, you should be happy. Why? Why should we be happy? Why? Rabbi Ovadia that loved Am Yisrael, Rabbi Yosef Karo that loved Am Yisrael, all of these tzaddikim, all of the tzaddikim, from Chassidut, from the Ashkenazi world, the Sephardi world, or the Mekubalim, all of the biggest tzaddikim in history, they all paskin like this. So how could they all say when a secular person dies, you should wear white and celebrate? Doesn't add up to the person. Why? Because they had a very clear understanding of what the truth is while we're struggling to get it. What is the truth? The truth is, Rabotai, they're happy that those people sinned because now that they're happy that those people died, because now that they died, blessed is HaShem that took them, because now He has stopped them from sinning, which is hurting them. In essence, if you knew that someone is killing himself by taking drugs, by drinking alcohol, by doing all types of horrible things, and you saw that he's bringing a lot of damage to himself, to his wife, to his kids, to society, awful damage to the world, and one day you found out that he died. Surely in your heart, the honest part of your heart, you would say, thank God he died. Why? Because of all the damage that he caused to himself, to his wife, or to her husband, and to the children, and to the parents, and to society, all the damage they were doing, thank God they died. That's in essence what Rabbi Ovadia is saying, what Rabbi Yosef Karo is saying, or what all of the tzaddikim that understood the purpose of our world, and the purpose of us in the world. That's what they all paskin. That's why they said Baruch HaShem. Baruch the omnipresent that did this. Now, many times, Rabotai Karim, we think that the stories that you hear are, in lectures and in different videos and so on, are always if they make sense to you, you like them and it's good, but if they don't make sense to you, perhaps there's something wrong with them, or sometimes you think maybe times have changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. People are the same. People have the same desires. People have the same sins as opportunities and the same mitzvot as opportunity. Now, although our generation is weaker in their Torah observance, nonetheless, the opportunity to grow is even greater today than it was in the past because of how accessible Torah is today. So there is pros and cons on both sides. There is a benefits. There is to this generation also of having so much access to the Torah, where you could literally learn the entire Shas from your without even having a book, by simply listening to specific videos that go off Daf Yomi. You can learn Musar and fix your entire life, your marriage, your relationships, your business, by simply watching good videos of real Musar and start applying them to your life. There's an extraordinary amount of information available in the world today that can help people fix their lives. And they don't necessarily need to go and start at the age of 0. They can start at any age, because even if they've missed out the yeshiva education for the first 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their life, they can still catch up relatively quickly because of how accessible Torah is today. But the point being is, Rabotai, when you look at our Torah, you see that our Torah doesn't really think like us as far as the reasons that we use and the excuses that we use not to learn Torah. Many times people say, no, I don't agree because the sages, they maybe they're too strict, maybe this, maybe that. Well, they're only strict if you think that the law is not divine. But when you know that the law is divine, there is no such thing as strict or not strict. This is the obligation. You can do it or choose not to. Simple. There's no strictness. Like maybe, oh yeah, a lot of people said you're strict rabbi. I don't understand what that even means. Am I adding to the law? No. Am I changing the law? No. I'm telling you what the law is. I'm telling you what HaShem said. I'm telling you what the sages said. Whether you choose to follow it or you don't follow it, that's your business. But at the very least, you'll be well informed. Now, if you prefer someone to lie to you, then of course you can go elsewhere. You're not going to get lies over here. But to say that this is strict or stringent or any of those silly words that people use is completely ludicrous, because, again, look at how the sages were. Now you're going to say, wait, maybe, but just the way you deliver it, it's harsh, they maybe raise your voice, maybe you say a genom. Okay, so let's see how the sages communicated to each other. Let's see how the sages communicated to each other, and then we'll go, and then you tell me whether I am strict, and the Torah that we teach is strict, or I am, as I've always mentioned to you, a little puppy, a little baby puppy next to the sages, and how they spoke to each other. I'll give you several examples. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 5b, has an extraordinary and well-known story of Ravuna. Ravuna had 400 barrels of wine that he used in order to make a living, where it was a good way to make a living for him because it allowed him to make few transactions a year, and that would give him enough time to learn Torah the rest of the year. But as you would have it, his 400 barrels of wine soured and they turned to vinegar, which surely, as no one needs to educate you about this, wine turns to vinegar. Obviously, it's an extraordinary loss. Instead of being each barrel costing thousands of dollars, now each barrel is costing a few $100s. So an extraordinary loss. So Rabbi Yehuda, the brother of Rav Sala Chasida, as well as other sages, went to visit Ravuna. And some also say that Rav Ada Bara'ava and other sages also visited him. Anyway, they heard about his loss, and they came to talk to him. Now you would think, let's say for example, you are a successful person, you've gathered a nice nest egg, $2, $3, $4, $5 million. You're able to give tzedakah, you're able to learn Torah, you're able to do a lot of things, and you figured, you know what, let me give it to Bernie Madoff. Let me give it to some financial manager that's just gonna keep me above water, and that way I can live on my nest egg for the rest of my life. And as you would have it, one day you find out, Ponzi scheme, all the money is gone. Right? All the money is gone. So, your friends find out, they call you, hey, Steve, I heard you lost everything? Yeah, okay, I'm coming. Okay, so now, your friend is calling you, say I'm coming, and I'm bringing friends over. What are you expecting your friends to come? To come and tell you, sorry to hear about it, man. Listen, you can do it. You're still young. You got your whole life. Hey, all types of encouraging messages. That's generally how society works. You expect your friends to give you encouraging messages. What did the sages do when they heard Rav Huna, one of the fellow sages that was able to resurrect the dead, giant chacham, he lost his money? What did they do? Did they act the same way like we do in society today? Or did they do something a little different? Now again, I'm telling you what the sages did in different circumstances today, not necessarily to go tell you to go do the same thing, because we're not necessarily in their level, or the audience that we have is not in their level. Even if you understand it, your audience may not understand it. So I don't necessarily recommend this type of behavior for anybody to do with anybody, but nonetheless to understand what the truth is, because the midah of emet, the trait of emet, is the signature of HaShem. And we're going to learn today how truthful the sages are, to what extent, because surely they're still human, surely it hurts, surely it's not always convenient, but nonetheless, they always tell the truth, and I'll show you multiple circumstances of truth being told in our teachings, and how different it is from the truth that people think they hear today. The sages come and they see him, and they said to him, why don't Rav Huna, why don't the master examine his affairs to determine the cause of this loss? Meaning, why don't you do some self-accounting to see where you sinned? We're sorry to hear, listen, too bad. No. Rav Huna, you lost all your money? Why don't you now do cheshbon nefesh to see why Hashem took your money? You do that today, somebody just lost all of his nest egg, and you tell him, listen, why don't you check yourself? Well, maybe it's good for you that Hashem took all your money. That person is going to join the money. That person just told you that. He's going to join the money. What? He's going to disappear. No one's ever going to find him because you're going to bury him exactly where he stands. No one wants to hear that kind of truth, but that's the reality. That's what the Chachamim say. Rav Huna, Kodesh Kodeshim, why don't you do cheshbon nefesh, Rav Huna? Rav Huna says to them, am I a suspect in your eyes? You suspect me of being a sinner? And they said to him, Is the Holy One, blessed is He, a suspect of punishing without justice? Rav Huna is a tzaddik, and he said, what, I'm a sinner? And they say to him, what, is Hashem a sinner? Is Hashem making mistakes? What, you think that Hashem punishes somebody for no reason? Is such a thought in your head? In that moment, Rav Huna understand they know something. They know something and they're trying to give me a message. Because surely Hashem doesn't make mistakes. And they're not saying for me to check myself for no reason. He says to them, if there is anyone who heard something about me that I must fix, let him speak now. And they responded to him, this is what we heard about you. Master did not give branches of his share to his sharecropper. The Rav Huna had some crops, and a certain relative of his was working for him, and usually some people would leave some of the remains and give it to them. And they said, we heard that you're not giving it to him. Perhaps that's the sin. It's not really a sin, but it's lack of generosity. So they said, maybe that's the reason why you're getting punished. Midah keneged midah. You're not generous. Hashem took away your money. So Rav Huna responds to them, did he leave me any of them? He stole all of them from me. That is, he took far more than his rightful share. Meaning, Rav Huna is saying to them, I don't need to give him anything that's left. He's stealing from me a lot more than I pay him. Listen to this, Rabotai. The sages respond to him. And they said, Rav Huna, this is an example of a popular adage. Steal from a thief and feel the taste of stealing. And he said to them, I accept upon myself to give him his share of the remaining branches. You guys are right. He's saying, you are not giving him what's traditionally given because he's stealing from you. But in reality, you're still doing something wrong. Why? You're a tzaddik. You're a kadosh. You know that Hashem is the one that runs the world and no one can take a dollar from you if Hashem didn't decree it. So either way, even if he's stealing, you should still give him what is usually traditionally given. And the fact that you're not giving it to him is as if you are stealing. You're getting a little taste of it, and it's that's why someone's stealing from you. Someone is stealing from you. Where because you in essence stole, in your level, it's not really considered stealing, but in your level it's considered like you stole, you are going to feel the pain of stealing yourself in essence. So Rav Huna says, you're right. I accept it. I accept what you said 100%. And the Gemara says that by the time that he got home, by the time he got back to where his barrels were, however long that journey was, 20 minutes, an hour, however long it was, miraculously the vinegar turned back to wine. And some say, no, it didn't turn back to wine, but rather the price of vinegar shot up through the roof, where he ended up making as much money as he would have made if it was wine. Either way, Hashem gave him back all the money that he lost because he got the message. But the bigger message here is for us, which is that rather than just pacifying the guy, no, everything's going to be okay, poor you, don't worry, Hashem knows, all this nonsense that people tell each other, just pacifying them with meaningless words, with empty words. You see how the sages talk to each other. We'll go to another example. Another example of Midat HaEmet. Chachamei Yisrael, the Jewish sages, in the Gemara Masechet Pesachim, page 94b. The Jewish sages say that by day the sun travels below the vault of the firmament, and by night it travels above the firmament. But the Gentile experts say that by day the sun travels below the vault of the firmament, and by night it travels below the ground. Meaning there's a disagreement between what the Jewish sages were saying versus what the Gentile scientists or experts at the time were saying. And this is written in our Talmud, right? So you would think, if it's, let's say, false religions like Christianity and Islam and all this other stuff that see no fault in themselves, what would they say? Surely the sages won, right? Gemara, full of emet, says, Rabbi brings a proof to the view of the Gentile sages, saying, Rabbi says, their words, the Gentiles, appear more reasonable than our words. For consider that by day the well springs are cold, while at night they're hot. Rabbi says, listen, based on the proofs that we have, and versus the proofs that they have a reasonable case. Some say he's saying that they are actually right here. But the Rabbeinu Tam comes and says, no, he's not saying that they're right, but he's saying that they have a good case. They have sufficient proof, something that we have to consider. Either way, why is this written in the Gemara? You should say, no, the Jewish people won, the sages won, they're always the smartest. No, that's not the way it is. That's not the way it is. Torah, objective. When we're right, we're right. When we're wrong, we're wrong. When information was given to us by God, surely there's no dispute. There's no dispute with the sages. We know what's right. But when it's information that we evaluated ourselves through our own intellect by using different things that we've learned, and we're wrong, and a Gentile is right, no problem. But why mention in the Talmud? Because that's the emet. That's the emet. Comes Rabbi Avraham ben Arambam, the son of the Rambam. He writes, the reason why Rabbi Kadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, his name was Yehuda. Why is he called Rabbi Kadosh? Now, of course, the Zohar says because he protected his brit. But did the whole world know about protecting his brit? Everybody kept their brit. All tzaddikim. What's that? No, look at this. He was a Kadosh because when he saw in his greatness, he saw he was wrong, even if it was in front of everybody. He not only admitted it, he wrote it in his own Mishnah, in his own Talmud. Yeah, I was wrong over here. Why? That's the emet. That's the emet, Rabotai. That's the emet. Another example. Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin. We have very interesting, well-known story. When Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos, the rabbi of Rabbi Akiva and many other of the great sages, when he became sick, Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, page 101a. When Rabbi Eliezer took ill, 4 sages came to visit him. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. And they came to see their Rebbe, who they learned a lot from. And they see the Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos is sick. So Rabbi Tarfon spoke up and said to Rabbi Eliezer, you, my dear teacher, are better for Am Yisrael than a drop of rain, for a drop of rain is beneficial in this world, whereas my master, by teaching us Torah, benefits us both in this world and the world to come. Rabbi Yoshua then spoke and said to Rabbi Eliezer, you are better for Am Yisrael than the very orb of the sun, for the orb of the sun provides light in this world, whereas my master provides light in this world and the world to come. Then Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah spoke up and said, you, my master, are better for Am Yisrael than a father and a mother. For a father and a mother create life in this world, whereas my master creates life in this world and the world to come. So far, 3 out of 4 giving compliments to their rabbi. Baruch HaShem, great. Comes Rabbi Akiva, his dear student, and speaks, precious are sufferings, chavivin yisurim. Huh? They're all complimenting him. And he's telling them, he sees his teacher, Kodesh Kodeshim, a living Sefer Torah, that had more Torah knowledge than the whole world put together, where if all of the ocean was ink, and all of the trees were pens, and all of the land was paper, would not be enough to write the Torah that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus knew. And that's what he said. And he says, and my Torah is not even a drop of water in comparison to the Torah of my rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he is suffering in pain. 3 out of 4 of his students are giving him compliments and saying, Rabbi, we love you. You're important to us. Keep pushing. Comes Rabbi Akiva and gives us a little bit different news. Precious are the sufferings that you have. In so many words, it's good you're suffering. Rabbi, it's good you're suffering. Baruch HaShem. Comes from Rabbi Akiva, not some gangster. Rabbi Akiva is saying, Rabbi, good you're suffering. Baruch HaShem. Precious are your suffering. Why? It's a kapara for you. It's a kapara for you. It's good. It's atonement for you. Now, somebody came to somebody's house, came to the hospital, visit him. Everybody's saying, no, listen, keep pushing. So the Shem surgery's going to go out, work out. Don't worry, you got another 120 years to go, all that stuff. And then somebody comes from left field and says, listen, good for you, you're suffering. Baruch HaShem. What are they going to do to this guy? They're going to throw him head first out the window. Get out of here, you pessimist, you crazy, poop, poop. Every curse under the sun. What are you going to do? Comes Rabbi Akiva, says, Baruch HaShem. Don't try this at home, by the way. You're not at that level, and neither is your audience. But again, this is the emet. Why is this the emet? Listen to this. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus says to the others, give me a hand, support me. I want to get up and I want to hear the words of Rabbi Akiva, my student, who said, precious are suffering. I want to hear it. I want to hear what he said. To get him up, he wants to hear it, pays attention to this. Why is it important? This is Torah over here. What are you saying? What are you saying over here? Precious are sufferings? Why? Akiva, where do you get this? Where did you get this opinion of yours, this chidush that you bring to me? So Rabbi Akiva responds, he says, I have a verse from the Torah that say it. You look at the book of Kings 2, chapter 21, verse 1 and 2. Where Menashe was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem, and he did evil in the eyes of HaShem. And it's written elsewhere that there too, there are proverbs of Shlomo HaMelech, which the men of Chizkiah, king of Yehudah, wrote down. So, in so many words, he's saying that Menashe was Rasha, did a lot of bad things, but his father was a big tzaddik. What did he do? He took the Torah, he wrote it down, made sure everybody learned Torah. Now, he says, is it possible that Chizkiyahu, the Kodesh Kodeshim, that the Hashem wanted to make a Mashiach? Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehudah, he taught Torah to the entire world, but he didn't teach Torah to Menashe, his son, and that's why he became a Rasha? Obviously, that's not the case. But rather, for all of the trouble that Chizkiyahu took with Menashe to teach him Torah and the paths of righteousness, none of that effort made Menashe do tshuva. What made him do tshuva? What elevated him finally? When suffering came upon him. That's what elevated Menashe to do tshuva. As it is written in the book of Chronicles 2, chapter 33, verse 10 and 11. Hashem spoke to Menashe and to his people, but they did not pay heed. So Hashem brought upon them the commanders of the king of Assyria, and they captured Menashe with hooks, bound him with copper fetters, and transported him to Babylonia. And the next verse says, when Menashe was in distress, He entreated Hashem as God. He did tshuva. He humbled himself greatly before Hashem, the God of his fathers. He prayed to him, and Hashem was entreated of him, and he heard his prayers, and he returned him to Yerushalayim, to his kingdom, by making a miracle and making the pot that the cannibals were about to cook and eat, Menashe. Hashem took that pot and made it fly in the air all the way from there, all the way to Yerushalayim. It was the first UFO. First UFO. Made a miracle. Not only saved him, made a miracle for him, made him fly in the air all the way to his kingdom because of his prayers. Why? Because Menashe started suffering. So despite him learning a lot of Torah, what saved him? His suffering saved him. And from here we learn, Rabbi Akiva says to his teacher, Rabbi Eliezer ben Orkinos, that suffering is precious, for it is these afflictions, not the Torah studies of his youth, that inspired Menashe to turn to Hashem in sincere tshuva, and then regain his throne. So that's why it's precious that you have suffering. It's good for you. Somebody says that in today's world, first thing that happens to them is you call Chivra Kadisha, because the person is not going to be there no more. But that's the truth, Rabotai. That's the truth. Another example. This one for sure, don't try it home. Gemara Bava Kama, page 38a. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, his daughter died. Shem Yishmor. And the rabbi said to Ula, come, let us go console him. Ula said to them, Ula was one of the Gdolador at the time. Ula said to them, what do I have to do with this consolation with you Babylonians? The way you console is like heresy, it's blasphemy against the Holy One. Because when you console somebody, you say, oh, what can be done? You know, maybe if you would have done this, maybe if you would have done that, maybe you could have saved her. That's the way you console people. And that's how people do today, unfortunately. Many times somebody loses something, whether he loses a loved one, or he loses money, lehavdil, or anything else. What do everybody do? Yeah, maybe if you would have done it another way, it could have done this happen. Maybe if you didn't go, maybe if you would have gone, maybe if you would have called, maybe I could have thought about it, maybe if I would have paid attention. That's how people console each other, and that's how people think. And Ula says that is blasphemy against Hashem. So I'm not going to console him with you guys, because you are heretics the way you console. I'll console him. You need to console him? I need to console him. But I'm not going to do it with you people. I just sell him dreams that something else could have happened. Because this type of consoling implies that there was something that could have been done to reverse God's decree. This is blasphemy. Instead, Ula went to Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda alone. And he says to him, there's a verse in Deuteronomy chapter 2 verse 9. He's coming there to console him. Think, look at how he consoles him. He's not going to console him like the heretics, but he's going to console him in a different way. How does he console? So obviously you would think, oh, he's going to console him by giving him a hug. You know, listen, what is he going to say to him? This is how he consoles him. Listen to this. He gives him a Dvar Torah. We learn from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 2, verse 9. What do we learn? And Hashem said to Moshe, don't oppress Moab, the nation of Moab, and do not incite war against them. Don't go to war against them. Why? Because he said that the Moab is a descendant of Lot, and Hashem says, I decided to give them a certain amount of land because of the merit of Lot. Therefore, don't go and try to conquer their land. Now, Ula says, now, why would it have arisen in Moshe Rabbeinu's thought to go to war against Moab without asking Hashem's permission in the first place? Did Moshe Rabbeinu ever go and do something and, oh yeah, I'm going to declare war against somebody else? Let's say, oh, you can ask Hashem, right? Why would he want to go against the war with Moab? For what? Especially go to war with them without asking Hashem for permission. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem knew his thoughts, and he reasoned to himself with the kal v'chomer, meaning he rationalized things with something where it makes sense that this is what should be done. So Hashem had to interfere and tell him, no. Even though it makes sense to you, don't do it. Don't do it. Why? There's certain reasons of why I want them to stay alive. What was the reasons? He says, look, there was the Midianites who came to war against Am Yisrael with the Cosby and all the other women over there. They enticed Am Yisrael, and the whole issue of what happened with Moab, and with Pinchas killing them and so on, that whole thing. That was Midian and Moab. So the Midianites that Moshe Rabbeinu ended up killing, they really just came to help the Moabites. The Moabites are the ones that started the whole thing. So he figured if we were commanded to go kill and take revenge against the Midianites, where Hashem commanded us in the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 17, oppress the Midianites and smite them, destroy them, then regarding the Moabites themselves, that actually instigated the whole hostile behavior against Am Yisrael, it's certain that Am Yisrael should wage war against them. Makes 100% perfect sense. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu thought. And what did the Holy One, blessed is He, say to Moshe Rabbeinu? He says to Moshe Rabbeinu, what you're thinking, Moshe, is not what I'm thinking. I don't desire the destruction of Moab, nor its sister nation Ammon. Why? Because these are two fine pigeons there are two fine pigeons that I must first draw forth from them. There's two diamonds coming out of these two nations that first have to come out before they get destroyed. What are those? Ruth the Moabite and Naamah the Ammonite. These are two tzadikot that need to come to the world first. They need to come to the world first. Ruth, of course, being the grandmother of David HaMelech, the Mashiach, and Naamah was the one of the wives of Shlomo HaMelech. She was a big tzadikah. So these two tzadikot will ensure the emergence of the future descendants of Moab and Ammon, and God forbid Moshe Rabbeinu to wage war against these nations. So comes back Ula to his friend that of Shmuel Bar Yehuda, who his daughter just died. He's telling him this whole thing, and he says, "Look what we learned from this story. We learned from this story that it's not a matter this matter is not a basis for kal v'chomer regarding your daughter. Meaning, look at what Hashem did. For these two pigeons, these two tzadikot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to show mercy to two entire nations. Why? These two entire nations got the right to exist because they're going to be two tzadikot that are born from them one day. So likewise, my teacher's daughter, meaning your daughter, Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, your daughter, if she was really that much of a tzadikah, worthy of having tzadikim descendants emerge from her, how much more so is it certain that Hashem would have kept her alive. In so many words, nothing good would have come from your daughter. That's why Hashem killed her. Because if anything good would have come from her, like Ruth the Moabite or Naamah the Ammonite, Hashem would have surely saved her. But if he took her out of the world, that means that nothing good would have come out of her. So that's how he consoled him. That's how he consoled him. Don't try this at home. But nonetheless, is it emet? 100% emet. 100% emet. Couple of small examples and we're going to get to your questions. This is a little bit of a different shiur, I think, than all the other ones we've done in the past. Here, Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, has a guy who's Talmid Chacham, die early, die young. In the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, page 13b and 13a, end of 13a, beginning of 13b, before the Mishnah. And this guy was Talmid Chacham, tzaddik, good guy, dies young, and which is it's a punishment. It's a punishment. If somebody dies young, it's a punishment many times. But to get clarity, the wife, who's a big tzaddikah, comes to the Bet Midrash and asks the tzaddikim, how could it be if the Torah promises a long life, if you learn, if you're tzaddik, if you this, if you that, how could my husband die so young? We haven't had it. What happened here? And no one has any answers for her. And she goes to a different Bet Midrash. No one has an answer. What Bet Midrash is she going to? She's going to the Bet Midrash of the biggest tzaddikim in the world, the people of the Gemara, the people that were able to resurrect the dead. And they don't have any answers for her. Why? Nobody knows the details of what happened here, because that's the accountings of HaShem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that she means well. She's not coming complaining against Hashem. She genuinely wants to find an answer. She's not like people today where as soon as something goes wrong, they complain against Hashem and become heretics. No, she wants to know, please give me insight of how I can understand what happened here. Because the Torah says one thing and something else happened. Can somebody give me an answer on this? Hashem sees that she's means well, he sends Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu Navi, Zachul Letov, he sends him to her house. Eliyahu Navi comes to this woman and he says, my dear daughter, when you were Nida, what did your husband do with you? She says, oh, chas v'shalom, God forbid, he didn't touch me. Even my little finger he didn't touch. So Eliyahu Navi says to her, what about the days that your white clothing, what about that? Meaning the time that you were counting. You're counting. She says, during the time that we were counting, he ate together with me, he drank together with me, he slept with me without clothing in the bed. That's how people used to sleep in those days, without clothing. But he didn't even think about anything else, meaning he didn't think about touching me. We're never intimate. It's just that since we're counting, and already I'm about to go to the mikveh, and the next day, a few days later, and so on, depending on where the count is. So we already started, coming back to normal things. But he didn't touch me, we weren't intimate, because he knows I'm not able, not allowed, not permissible yet. When I was still bleeding, he didn't even touch my finger. But once I already started counting, we slept in the same bed. We ate together in the same plate. Eliyahu Hanavi, Zachul Letov, says to the woman, Baruch HaMakom she'arago, blessed is God who killed him. What? I'm asking for answers. I'm asking what? Blessed is God who killed him? Yes. Blessed is God who killed him because your husband did not show respect towards the Torah. For the Torah says that not only don't touch your wife when she's nidah, but Torah says in the Leviticus chapter 18 verse 19, Ver isha benidah tum'ata lo tikrav. The Torah says you shall not approach a woman, don't get close to a woman in her time of nidah, an unclean separation. Don't even get close to her. Forget about no touch her. That's obvious. Don't even get close to her. Sleep in the same bed, handing stuff to each other, eating from the same plate. Habibi, you have no respect for the Torah with all the Torah that you learn. Baruch Hashem that he killed you. That's what Eliyahu Navi says to the woman, says to the widow. And that's the emet. That's the emet, Rabotai. That's the emet. That is the emet that people have a hard time understanding. Why? It doesn't jive with their common sense of humans. The Gemara, Masechet Chulin, page 116b. If you look at the Rashi over there says, To'e'aiti bekach. I made a mistake in regards to this issue. This is in regards to a whole issue with regards to milk inside the cow and so on. We're not going to get into the subject because you guys have to ask questions, but nonetheless, Rashi says, I made a mistake. This is the only time in the entire Shas, Rashi says, I made a mistake. Now, if you're writing a thesis paper, if you're writing a report, if you're writing a book, are you going to write, by the way, I made a mistake here? No. If you made a mistake, don't write it. If you made a mistake, I don't know, make believe you didn't make a mistake. Why? You want to present yourself in a good way, that you're infallible. That's not Torah. Rashi says, I made a mistake. One time in the Torah. Why? It's the only mistake you made. But what about, was it something that Rashi didn't know? Was it something that Rashi didn't know? The Gemara in Masechet Brachot. Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 25b. Rashi says, Lo yadati. Lo yadati. I didn't know. I don't know this. Comes hundreds of years later in Sefer Gilayon Hashas. Rabbi Akiva Iger, one of the Gdolei Ador, says, this lo yadati, this Rashi saying he doesn't know, is one of 43 times in the entire Shas that he says he doesn't know. Anyone who understands the size of the Shas, how huge it is, it's literally incomprehensible how big the Shas is. But Rashi writes one time, I made a mistake, 43 times, I don't know. Now, when I don't know, I don't talk about it. When you don't know, you pretend you know. That's the way people are. Rashi, sages, I don't know. I don't know. Why? You want to be Chacham? Learn to say, I don't know. That's what Chachamim say. Learn to say, I don't know. When you don't know. Learn to say, I made a mistake. When you make a mistake. Why? That's the emet. So why go about it and write a whole book about it? Rabbi Akiva Iger says we need to know. We need to know. What? He doesn't know. 43 things. 43 things he didn't know. That's it. Everything else he knows. Rabotai Karim. Why did the sages delve into these 43 things instead of the 1.5 million things that he didn't know? Because we need to know both. That's Torah. That's the emet. That's the holiness. That's the beauty. When a person understands that Torah is not an opinion, and that opinion that you have may or may not disagree with the Torah, you have to always remember, you listen to the Torah, you're going to win. Whether it's apparent right away or not is irrelevant. You listen to the Torah, you're always going to win. But you start listening to your feelings, you're guaranteed to lose. You're guaranteed to lose. All types of people do whatever they feel. In the Jewish world, people decide they're going to keep whatever selective mitzvot they want. Drive on Shabbat because they want to go to shul because they live far away, thinking that it's more important to go to synagogue than to keep Shabbat. Why? Because their heart tells them that. Or the rabbi, unfortunately. Or they're marrying somebody, or they're with somebody they're not allowed to be with. Oh, Rabbi, please, he's such a good guy. So what if he's a good guy? You're not allowed to marry him. No, but can't you convince him to be Jewish? No, I don't convince people to be Jewish. He wants to be Jewish, it's on him. I'll help him if he wants to be Jewish. I'll guide him, I'll send him a syllabus or something. But that's it. He wants to be Jewish, it's on him. She wants to be Jewish, on her. But people cry about it. Oh, you're not sensitive. Not sensitive? What do you mean you're sensitive? I don't have time to be sensitive. If I was sensitive, I'd cry all day for all the disasters I deal with. Better yet, non-Jews, decide, I'm Jewish. What do you mean you're Jewish? Your mom is Jewish? No. You converted? No. So why are you Jewish? I keep Shabbat. But you're not Jewish, you don't have to keep Shabbat. Rambam says if you're non-Jew, you keep Shabbat, you are a thief. You're going to go to Gehenom. No, but I like it. So what you like it? So why do you like it? Either become a Jew or don't. Don't act like a Jew without becoming a Jew. Now, if you're in a process of conversion, you should keep 99% of Shabbat, but specifically 99%. Why? To remind you you're not allowed to keep Shabbat because you're still a goy. But you are going to listen to your little Buddha feelings and go to Gehenom with those feelings. Why? Because you're going against the Torah Kedusha and its Chachamim and listening to your stupid feelings. Rabotai, take those feelings, throw them in the garbage. Why? It's going to leave room for the Torah to enter, and that is what's going to take you to Gan Eden. That's what's going to take you to Gan Eden. Torah is Kodesh Kodashim. It's 100% emet, even when that emet has to be something that makes us look bad. Like, I'm wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, somebody died, maybe you're a sinner. Like, nothing good would have come out of it. That's why it happened. All types of things that today's society doesn't make any sense. But it only doesn't make sense to someone who's empty of holy Torah and emet. Someone that has emet and a Torah to lead them in all directions. This is one-way street. There is no branches. One-way street. And those fools that say there's 70 faces to the Torah, those 70 faces are all parts of the same diamond, all looking at the same center, which is the emet of the Torah. They can't be all looking in different directions, and he has his version and he has his version. There is no versions. They're all facets of the same diamond, looking at the same center point, which is the emet. That's the signature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Seven years of lectures. Seven months of film editing. Countless hours of study by two rabbis. Information we received over 3,000 years ago. All for this moment. To whom had greed? The movie.
There's a small member in your body. It shouldn't take over your whole life. If you satiate it, you're never going to have enough.
The sulfur clamp, when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
Time for us to rectify what we have done.
Normal numbers should be somewhere around 20 million or higher.
You're never going to have control of it. If you start it, and only feed it when it's permissible according to the Torah.
Pornography is as addictive as crack cocaine.
You're always going to be happy, including this world and the next. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen.